if you've created a last will and testament, if you have a will, most likely for most people, you're going to have to make some sort of change at some point during your life, right? I see all the time where someone will come into the office and say, hey, look, I did this will, 15, 20 years ago. I need to change it. Or, when I created this will, my kids were really young and I had all these provisions for them about what would happen if, me and the spouse passed away, who would take care of them, all different types of stuff. Or, maybe some of the beneficiaries that you had in your will have passed away. Maybe you listed your parents as the executor or the personal representative. They've passed away. So you got to make some sort of changes. What should you do? How do you go about doing it? Well, depending on this state, and again, I practice almost exclusively in Florida and in Tennessee. You got to comply with legal requirements. So typically you can't just do a very simple, document or slash through the original document and remove somebody's name and then handwrite in somebody's name. You have to follow the formalities of what the formalities were when you created the will. There's usually going to have to be a couple witnesses. It may or may not have to be notarized. You're going to have to sign it. Again, check your local state or speak with your attorney, but there are some requirements. Now, you may want to do what's just called an amendment, right? Which you're probably familiar with that, an amendment, or what's called an addendum, where you just basically say, hey, in Article 3, Section 1, I named this person as my executor. I'm now changing that and making this person executor, and you change that. That's a really simple way to do it, right? And if you're not making drastic changes, if you're just making a simple change, maybe you wanted to leave $5,000 to one person and now, they've passed away and you want to leave it to somebody else or whatever the case may be, that's relatively a simple change. And so an amendment can be done. You don't have to redraft your entire will. But if it's a little bit more complex, and maybe if it's just been years, or maybe it's been years and the law has changed, right? You got to make sure you're up to date with any changes in your state law. You may want to revoke that will and create a new will. So revoking it is actually pretty simple. You just have to destroy it, right? Because for the most part, wills are not recorded. There's not really a national database that people put all their wills. Most people don't give them to the courthouse until, the person's passed away. So what you would do is it's as simple as tearing it up, throwing it in the fire. Now, you might want to have your attorney draft something saying that you revoked it, that you got rid of it, that you had a will, dated July 1st, 1990, but, that will's no longer in effect. But what will actually happen is if you're creating a new will, right? So let's say you're creating a new will in 2023 and you're revoking that will from 1990, typically on one of the first lines of that will is going to say, I hereby revoke and void, or some version of I revoke any and all previous wills and any and all previous amendments, any and all previous codicils, something like that. So that this will, you're basically saying, hey, look, this is the most recent will that I've got. And so, again, if you're making some simple changes, and the laws haven't changed and your will is valid, you may just want to do an amendment. If it's a little bit more complex, the laws have changed, you kind of want to just redo it, draft an entire new will. Now, my suggestion is typically going to be if all you have is a will and you're now thinking about updating your estate plan, look at doing some additional planning, maybe doing a trust, maybe doing something else. That might be a good option. But again, very simple. If you're looking to make some changes, make your amendment. That's all you need to do. Either do an amendment or think about doing a new one and revoke that previous will.